Today's podcast is brought to you by Progresso Talent Partners, who for more than 25 years have successfully delivered interim and permanent leadership talent to transform businesses. To hire the talent you need to enable your business to thrive, visit www.progressotalent.com today. In 2013, the morning commute turned to a discussion around a shared love of baking, and the idea for a home baking kit was born. Fast forward 8 years, and Bakedin is sold in thousands of shops and online retailers, from Tesco to Ocado, QVC to Moonpig, in the UK, Europe and North America. Their Baking Club subscription service was named in The Independent's Top 15 food subscriptions 2 years in a row, alongside the likes of Gray's, HelloFresh and Hotel Chocolat. So what drove Joseph Munns to take the plunge from 15 years in software with IBM to launch Bakedin, one of Britain's fastest growing subscription businesses? Without further ado, let's get into it. Joe Munns, good morning. Welcome to the Extrology podcast. I really, as always, appreciate you coming on as my guest. I'm really fascinated to find out a little bit more about the story behind Bakedin, and we'll explore that in a little more length in due course. But as always, want to start with the early days. So tell me, where did you grow up and what was early life like for you?
Yeah, I guess my early life wasn't massively remarkable, that interesting. I grew up, I'm from Hampshire, just outside Basingstoke, and got a brother, Patrick, a couple of years younger than me, and fairly normal. Went to university. I wanted to do sports science. Really been into sport most of my life. And my parents taught me out sports science, and they said, "What are you going to do? With sports science, that's your hobby. That's not what you should go and study. You should go and study something more practical, something where there's going to be a good job at the end of it." I was like, okay, no worries. And so I ended up doing the computing at A level, and that was my best subject. So I went to Loughborough University, driven by sport, because it's a sporting university. Bit ironic, because that's kind of where I gave up lots of sport, but I did a computing and management degree, so half computing, half management science. I was a good level rugby player. I was county rugby, tennis, sort of around the golf kind of team at that point. And I went to Loughborough thinking I'll do all this sport as well. So there you go. I'll marry the two things. I'll go to the country's by far best sporting university, and I'll go to a good business school and do all of this. And that was great. And the degree was great, but sport, to get in the teams, to get in the rugby team, you need to be national level. So with my county experience, I was going to get in like the fourth or fifth team at best. And the same with tennis. I wasn't quite county level at tennis, but I'd been to the trials, and I would have got in the fifth team if I was lucky. And so sport just kind of nosedived at that point for me. And then I just went and did the normal university thing and got a good degree, did a year out as part of it. That was really good. Sandwich course at IBM. So as a software engineer, and then loved that, got offered a job back as a software engineer and finished my degree and went back there and did that. And I think I was quite good at computers. The management side of things, the business studies side, I was stronger at. And I quickly became apparent going somewhere like IBM. This is the software labs down in Winchester, where they make some pretty serious software. It's the software like behind the software behind bank machines. So it makes IBM billions of dollars, and it's really deep and technical. And if it stopped working, the world's economy would pile in. It's really quite fundamental to everything, but it's 40 years old, and I quickly found out that I wasn't that good at computers, and I was probably the worst at computers when I turned up at IBM. So I quite quickly decided I'd focus myself on the management side of the business and differentiate myself that way. Good with people, good at presenting, quite organized, not as organized as I thought it was, it turns out, but project management, I thought I'll go into that side of the business, and that worked really well. I climbed the corporate ladder at IBM for 15 years in total. So my blood was well and truly blue at that point, and I worked my way up through the management chain, and I just started getting to the point where I just wasn't really enjoying, wasn't feeling that fulfilled anymore. And I did then get an opportunity with a little company we'd bought. So IBM is big in acquisitions, buys lots of companies. We bought a little software company just outside Reading called Butterfly Software, and they make backup recovery software. There's about 25 people in the company, and I was probably a little bit junior for the role, but because the labs where we were down in Winchester, I live in Basingstoke, and this lab was up near Maidenhead. It wasn't a massive pool of people who were going to be up for driving backwards and forwards to this place. So I got a bit of a shot there, and my job was to be dropped in to blue wash. It's called blue washing. Everything's blue at IBM, and take them and turn them into part of IBM. And so I was dropped in as the person to help this blue wash and to help bring all their technical teams over to from zero process and red tape to masses of process and red tape. And I was there to explain to them all how good it was going to be being part of the mothership. And IBM's a great company. I'll never say a bad word about IBM. It was a really good career. But as I started doing that job, one of the founders, Ian, he'd started the business, and he was obviously had just sold it and was going to be at IBM for a couple more years as an executive. And there's a sort of battle between the corporate boy and the entrepreneur, and he was about the same age as me, like super charismatic guy. And we didn't clash, as it were. I had a lot of respect for the guy. He's awesome, but my job was like the opposite of what he was. This red tape shit. And I was like, no, this is good. These processes are good because this. And they go and buy a computer off eBay because it was the cheapest place to buy one. I was like, no, you have to buy the computer from this. You have to go in this database and you fill it in, and it costs this much. It costs how much? Well, that's just the way it works in like corporate worlds. This is how it all works. And so my job was to transition them across. But as I was doing that, found myself thinking, actually, you know what? I'd actually prefer to be part of a small company like this. This is much more interesting to me. So I was in this kind of...
Do you remember why?
I think it's just, I guess I'd been at IBM for 15 years. I didn't love computers, right? And that's, I always said if I went into IT and went into more consumer side, like apps or something you can relate to as a consumer more than software that you don't even know exists, right? Most of us don't even know this software behind that's sending messages millions of times a second and making sure all the transactions are accurate. You don't even think about it. You just take it for granted. So it's not that interesting for a non-techie to work on. So it's quite hard to get excited about it. And something I've found out over the last 5 years is that if you are genuinely passionate about what you're doing for work, it's a total cliche, but it doesn't feel like work. You get up, I get up on Monday morning and I'm not thinking, I've got to go to work. I'm thinking, great, I've got to go to work. I've got all this stuff I can do. And, love baking and making cakes and everything that I'm involved with now. But I think it was just more exciting for me, this little company. So that was the point where I started Bakedin. As an IBM is a brilliant, flexible employer, and they let you get on with these as long as it doesn't compete or conflict with anything that IBM's doing. They're generally pretty happy for you to do what you want in your spare time. So I said to my boss, I said, got this idea to start a home baking company. What do you think? He's like, yeah, go for it. That's fine. So that's kind of where Bakedin started. And I'd always had Homer Simpson with these terrible business ideas over the years where I'd come up with an idea and I'd get a few mates together and we'd do a little bit on it and then we'd lose interest for whatever reason and started a business called Spot Luck. We were going to do kind of like the company best of the best with spot the ball competitions, win a car. We can do that for low value prizes, like Xboxes and things, all going to be online with a little app. We started that and it failed and we moved on. And then I started a business called Peace Mash, a keen skier. We were gonna map all the ski resorts in the world, and then we were eventually going to get people to ski down them with videos so you could see what a ski run was going to be like before. And there's lots of reasons why that's a terrible idea, and that started and fizzled out. And then there was the air shot, big golfer. We were going to fly drones over golf. This is before drones became a thing. Like it was an enthusiast area to make a drone, to make like a hexacopter or whatever they called, and bought all the parts off eBay. Never made one before. Three of us made this drone, made a little golf map. Try flying one of these early drones in the wind and it's all over the place and the video's awful. These days, £100 you can buy one that's going to be like stable and you can fly it over the golf course. We tried that, we crashed it, broke, gave up that idea. So we've got this stream of mini failed businesses, and then I had this idea with my friend Anna. We live shared, so we drove from Basingstoke to Winchester. It felt like a long commute because pretty much everyone lives around Winchester at IBM. You come from Basingstoke, it's half an hour away. So I live shared with my friend Anna, who also lived in Basingstoke. And we were just talking about all these business ideas that had and they all failed. And then I can't remember exactly how it happened. I think one of us had baked a cake to take into work, because cooking has always been a hobby of mine, and started talking about the recipe kits that were just becoming really popular at the time. And HelloFresh and Gusto, and they were just starting to get traction and people are starting to hear about them. We said, oh, they're great. I've used both of these. And they're both awesome. But no one does it for baking. You've got the mixes on the shelves, or you've got to go and buy all the ingredients and bake. And I think I would probably bake something and was grizzling because I've got all this. I only needed like a teaspoon or something, and now I've got 500 grams of it in my cupboard. I'm probably never going to use it again. So we said, well, we should try this for baking kits. We could do that. Yeah, why not? Let's try that. And that's effectively where the idea for Bakedin came from. So we 100 quid each, chucked 100 quid each, and went to Tesco's, bought a load of ingredients, bought some bags and a heat sealer off eBay, made a load of kits and just gave them to friends and family and said, try these, see what you think. And then made a Google survey and got all their feedback on it. And I found out at that point is when you ask people for feedback, you rarely, on something like that, on a business idea, you rarely get really good, accurate feedback. You've got kind of two camps of people. You've got cheerleaders, people who will tell you, this is amazing, they're super supportive. And I'm not saying that any of these people aren't friends. Everyone means well, and everyone genuinely means well. But you've got these people who are cheerleaders and will say, whatever you do, that's amazing, this is incredible, support you and make you feel really good. And then you've got people who are really negative and skeptical and say, this is a terrible idea, it won't work. And they don't want to see you fail. They're your friends, but I think there's definitely two camps of people. So we got this quite polarizing feedback from lots of different people, but in general, it was really positive. And people said, you should give this a go. So we weighed some more out and printed some labels on our little inkjet printer. We went to a school fair. We went to a school fete for 20 quid. We went to the Newbury Food Festival in the High Street, and that was about 50 quid. And then I think we went to a little Arslan market and we tested the concept, bought a gazebo, again, still within our 200 quid startup costs. Cheap gazebo that further down the line blew away at a market, really cheap gazebo. And we sold them, and we had sort of medium amount of success at the first one. And then we had some good success at the other two. And we said, this is fun. This is really good. So friend Elena joined us. There was 3 of us at this point. And we just then went from working at IBM in the daytime, go home, weigh up ingredients in the evening, sell them at weekends, and repeat that over and over. And we got some breaks with some little farm shops, just happened to meet them, and they stocked them. They're in little brown bags at this point. They look fine. They look really, artisan, what you'd expect someone to make on the kitchen table. But we gradually started getting bigger farm shops, bigger sort of small stockists, and we then got a little startup loan from the government. It was like $5,000, got some labels, proper labels printed. And this kind of just snowballed. Went to a trade show. We spent a couple of grand going to the BBC Good Food Show. We went to our first trade show, and we got no experience in the food industry at this point. And then we just hit this point after 2 years of it where we had Lakeland who'd found our products and were interested. We had a little unit from the council that we were renting, but we just couldn't do it. It was breaking us. There's only so much of working in a stressful corporate job and then bagging ingredients every night and selling them at weekends you could do. So that was the kind of point where I decided that I was going to get some investors and quit my day job and give it a shot full time.
And the rest, they say, is history. So it's fascinating. Take me back, if I may, perhaps even to your childhood. That kind of that entrepreneurial instinct to which you refer, that thinking of business ideas, and not just thinking of ideas, but actually making them happen and seeing them fail. Where did that stem from? Was there a business background?
Not really, no, I don't think so. I think my dad has been in construction in excavator digger sales, and just retired actually as a sales director. And he'd sort of started a couple of his businesses in plant hire along the way. But I don't think it's something it's not something that was in my blood. I definitely didn't, start up a lemonade stand and sell stuff to the kids in the playground. None of the, the textbook kind of cliche stories. I don't think there was really anything particularly entrepreneurial. I used to like going to car boot sales with my mum to sell all our old Lego and Star Wars figures, which we definitely shouldn't have sold now, as it happens. But other than that, no, I don't think there was anything really until I did my degree and started doing, I think we did a small business planning module in the final year. And my project was, I comboed it because I like to save effort if I can. And my computing project was to build a golf course, not a tea time booking system, so you could book into competitions at a golf course. Yeah, and this is when the dawn of the internet, like not the dawn of the internet, but when the internet started becoming mainstream in like 2000, and made this system. And then I decided I'd combo it with my business studies kind of dissertation and do a project around as if I was going to make a business plan to sell this product into golf clubs, and it got like battered back. The golf clubs weren't ready for it. As it happens, they've all got them now. But so again, it was ahead of its time. It was a bit like the drones. It was ahead of its time. And I think that's probably why I got into it, doing the small business planning module and actually going through the process of creating a small business and the plan for it. And then I took the easy option and had this nice corporate job and went to IBM and started earning good money. And I think if I had my time again, I'd probably, I had no commitments and no fortunate just before tuition fees, or hadn't racked up masses of student debt literally the year before they came in. So I was really lucky. That would have been a great time to start a business. I had toyed with the idea of starting a web design business. People weren't making web pages much at that point. I could make fairly straightforward web pages, made a couple for friends and family, one of who's actually a shareholder in Bakedin now, but had the ideas, but then just the allure of the steady, decent salary and the good job prospects was too much at that point. So I think it just got shelved until I then realized actually there was desire to do something more than the corporate job.
How did those ideas, how did you make them work, I guess is the question I'm searching for, in so much as you hear of people who, they keep lists of creative ideas and they write all these ideas down, and they come to them in the middle of the night, scribble on a pad at the side of the bed and think I'll get to that one day. But arguably many never do. I wonder how many great ideas are sat on Post-it notes somewhere. But did you have a process that you followed, or did you have have you go through eureka moments and think, right, let's give this a go?
Yeah, no, that's it. If I sat down, and me and you sat down over a beer, we could make 100 good business ideas, in a couple of hours easily. And anyone can. You can come, and the difference between a business idea and actually being successful is doing something about it. And it's really difficult to do something about it. You have to have quite a bit of motivation. I'm not a massively self-motivated person, and I generally, if I've got someone else with me that's quite motivated as well, that's when I'm at my best. That's when I get stuff done. And I have all these business ideas, and I think the reason that the other ones were quite good ideas, the skiing and golf things, the market might have been a little bit niche, but actually having people who are as motivated as me to get it done, and that happened when we did Bakedin. Anna was as motivated as me, and I think the two of us having someone else, that makes a big difference. People say find a co-founder, and I think that makes a really big difference getting an idea off the ground. I mean, Anna and Lane actually stayed at IBM and didn't sort of come on the journey when we took investment. They're still all shareholders, and that's when my brother Patrick joined, and I actually floundered for a little bit for a year or so on my own before he left the army, joined me as the other director, and then we then it kicked on, and I always work better with somebody else to kind of bounce off, someone with complementary skills to me.
Interesting. So at what point with Bakedin, what point had you discovered that kind of love of baking? Was it something you always did, you mucked about as a kid, baking cakes on a Sunday afternoon, or where did you first think, actually, this is something I could get really interested in, I'm really passionate, or ultimately became really passionate about it?
So I'm passionate about food, and not necessarily baking. I enjoy baking, but I would say cooking was something that mum, and she's clever. She's a primary school teacher. So dad was in sales, directing, and construction. Mum was a primary school teacher, and both really good cooks. And quite often dad would come in the kitchen and create a massive mess and create a delicious meal. Mum would cook most of the meals. And then once my brother Patrick and I got old enough, Mum realised that she could get us enthusiastic about cooking, and she could get a Sunday off every couple of weeks, and we'd all take it in turns to cook a meal on a Sunday. And that was something to look forward to, as it's your turn to cook this Sunday. So we'd cook the Sunday meal, Mum would get a Sunday off, and I think that's where Patrick and I both got like a real passion for cooking. I mean, I like eating as much as I like cooking. We all like food, right? And that's, I think, something at IBM, when sat down with people we'd never met before, say, what do you do? I work at IBM. What do you do? I would develop this software. What does it do? Well, it's behind the cash points. And then the conversation's more or less over, because I was there 15 years and barely understand, really what happened under the covers. This is going to go out in the public domain and look a bit silly, but I think it's fair. I think, that wasn't my strength. Was the technical side was never my strength. But we all eat. Everyone eats, and almost everyone likes eating. And so food is something that we all have in common. There's not many things that every single person has in common, and eating food is one of them. And most people can get really passionate about food. We like going out for a meal to a restaurant, or lots of us like cooking or like having food cooked for us. So it's something that's really easy to resonate with. It's something really easy to get excited about, and it's something really easy to get other people excited about. And, we can talk more later about the actual baking side, but I think fundamentally it's food is what really motivates me in cooking. It's my hobby. My wife doesn't cook at all, so I do all of the cooking, and that's fine because I really like cooking. During the pandemic, cooking on a Saturday and having feast day, as we call it, and cooking like some massive meal is some sort of level of normality, something to look forward to. And the golf courses are all shut, so we can't go and play golf. But I think food it's just really special and important to everyone. So.
I think the thing that's always struck me is that the simple principle of, if we determine it as sort of breaking bread, but getting a group of people together around food in particular, arguably it's what unites us. If you think at some of the most pivotal moments in history, decisions have been made, determined, sat around a table over a meal or whatever it might have been. So it does absolutely, I would understand that. And if you look at the thing that strikes me as well, is if we look at, has cooking always been cool? It strikes me that cooking has become cool. Over the last 20 years, in the mainstream, from a TV perspective, from a media perspective, you look at the kind of, I go back to being a kid and thinking, I can't think of many cookery shows that were on TV. But you look now, and there's virtually not a channel, not a channel that doesn't have some kind of flagship show that's focused around cooking in some way, shape, or form. So, but if you go back to that, your IBM experience, that corporate experience that you enjoyed at IBM, what do you think that equipped you with when it came to running your own business, or even thinking about running your own business? What had that corporate experience given you, do you think?
It's been I think one of the big reasons in our success. I think it's completely different. So managing a sort of senior level in a corporation versus managing a small business, there's skills from both that are really useful to each other, but they are poles apart. And the things that keep me awake, such as running out of cash. And we have nearly run out of cash a couple of times, and I've had my share of mental health problems around things like that, and they're different. You don't worry about you might worry about being made redundant or something out of your control at a big corporation, but you don't worry about the company running out of cash and wondering how you're going to pay your team next month. That's just not something you worry about. The things that are really transferable, that have really helped me, is being able to manage a team of people, and just, second nature. I've been used to managing a team of people for 10 years prior to Bakedin. So hiring people and managing them hasn't really been a second thought. And I know lots of startups that worry about how to manage people. If I'd gone straight from university, I'd have had no experience of managing a team. And I've been through all IBM's management training, and it would have cost tens of thousands of pounds, and would never have got that sort of fundamental basis to management had I just gone straight into a startup. And I'm sure I'd have figured it out, but it would have taken longer. And so I definitely went in with a really good, solid foundation on leadership. I think leadership's the important thing. Running a small business, almost nothing, cash flow, profit and loss, supplier management, all these little things that you do as a small business. You do everything to start with. You just, someone else has a whole procurement department. There's like 4 levels of procurement department to buying something. So you just fill in a form and stuff happens. So there's definite synergies, and there's definitely an overlap. And, we've built the foundations of Bakedin early, and now in a position where we can and are scaling significantly. And I think having a corporate background definitely helps. Patrick went to Sandhurst and went to, it was a captain in the army and went to Afghanistan, and comes in with, a different set of really solid leadership skills. So I think having these big organizational leadership skills really helps in a small business.
So you go back to that car journey and that commute that you referred to, and Anna, I think you mentioned the lady's name. Was there a point on that journey where you thought, hang on a minute, you're shooting ideas around, but you've come onto you're talking about what that we now know is Bakedin. Was there a point in which you think, actually, do you know what? that really could work? Or did it take that farmers markets and all those things that you referred to kind of validate actually
it did,
people do want this?
It did, because, like I say, we come up with 100 ideas in an hour, no problem. Decent business ideas. Me and Patrick do it all the time. We drive somewhere in the van, company van, and we go to see a customer or something. And the longest one, we drove to Newcastle to do a sampling at a big customer and drove back, and we spent hours in the van. And I've got domain names that we registered off that discussion of like ridiculous business ideas that we just shelved because you can't do all these things. To do anything properly takes so much time and effort. But we have got hundreds of completely unrelated to Bakedin business ideas, and also hundreds of amazing things that we could do with Bakedin that we just know are going to take so much time. And just ideas are cheap. I think ideas are really easy to come up with, but getting something done with them, that's where people that can get something done are like gold dust to me.
I was struck earlier, you mentioned that you might not consider yourself to be necessarily very self-motivated, I think was the phrase that you would have used. But I'm struggling with that. I'm finding that a little hard to believe, if only because I think I know the motivation it takes just simply to start something, to make it happen. When you combine that with what I know will have been a very demanding day job at IBM, to be then going to evenings, weekends to make a concept fly, to really believe in it, that strikes me as someone with a high level of self-motivation. What is it that motivates you? Where does that drive come from?
I think we're maybe talking slightly cross purposes, because I think it's momentum. Right? Once I get momentum, then that's when I'm like an unstoppable force. But going from 0 to 60, actually, all my friends would take the mickey on the football pitch, saying that once I'm up to speed, I'm quite fast, but my acceleration is not. Milk-float Munns has been coined as a term on the football pitch before, but I think it's having somebody to. It's not necessarily the motivation of it, but it's having someone to get something spooling up, and then once it's going, I think that's the key. It's the spark, and getting the fire ignited is the bit where I would say, my strength is if I sat there and just sat at my desk at home on my own and spent 2 weeks coming up with something. If I had someone sat next to me, I'd do it in a quarter of the time, because it's just, I find another person just really motivates me, and I've got tons of gaps, as we all do, in our skill sets and things that we're not particularly good at. I'm really not a very good project manager. If I've got a good project manager, I've got someone really organized next to me, then that's perfect. We get so much more done. If you're a jack of all trades, like a genuine jack of all trades, probably can get those business ideas up and going quicker. My strengths are in leadership and creativity and bringing other people with me and all the ideas, but the actual dotting the I's and crossing the T's, can do it. I wouldn't have got to a senior job in IBM if I couldn't do some level of project management, but it's definitely not my strength.
Was there a moment, going back to those Bakedin early days of farmers markets and school fairs and all those sorts of things, was there a moment where you thought, you know what, going to throw in the towel? Did you come close? Was there a sort of pivotal moment where?
All the time, yeah, totally. It's again a massive cliche, the roller coaster you go on as a startup and a business, and it's just it's never flat. You're never just like, yeah, this is good. It's always elation or despair, and somewhere in between. You're always on a slope down to despair or up to elation to some extent. So yeah, regularly at midnight we'd be trying to pack an order, thinking, what are we doing? This is horrendous. I don't want to be doing this, and then going to work the next day tired. And then it did feel like towards the end it was too much of a slog, and we just happened to be in the right place where we had real opportunities, and we managed to create a decent revenue stream this way that I thought, I don't, it's not that I don't enjoy what I'm doing. I don't enjoy not doing anything else and just being constantly going hammer and tongs at making this. That's where it became a reasonably easy decision. IBM let me cut my hours down to where I compress them. So I was doing 4 or 5 days in 4. So I had a Friday off to work on Bakedin. And that's something we've carried on into Bakedin. We've got this 4-day week. It's kind of part of our signature. It's one of the things that makes us what we are as a company, that we work Monday to Thursday, but we work long days. We work our full hours in Monday to Thursday. And I had that Friday that I could sit down at my desk at home and just crack on with some of this Bakedin stuff. And, I knew I loved it. I genuinely thought we had this idea for the subscription box that we couldn't do, that we wanted to do. And we needed investment. We were just coming up to 2 years old. So we could raise SEIS capital. We could break for the tax, for the investors, good tax break. So I had this really small window of like 3 months to do it. And we were going to crowdfund. We'd made a video, a really bad video. And again, with hindsight, to actually crowdfund properly, you need to make a really good video. And we'd made a really homemade video in the kitchen, but with a fairly good business plan behind it. And that was all locked and loaded, ready to go. And I sent that around my friends and family. And that's what you do. You get some momentum. And even though we'd never actually done crowdfunding, I now know a lot more about crowdfunding than I did at the time. And family friend Nick, who owns a clay pigeon shooting school, and he was the person who I made a website for. I used to play golf with him back in the day, and made him a website. My first website that I made and got some money for. It was like 200 quid, but I was made up with it at the time. And he said, I'd like to invest in this. It's really interesting. I've also got some friends who I know that we invest in businesses together. Don't press the button yet. Let me send the business plan around, see what we can do. And 2 days later, I've been introduced to a guy called David, who then turned into our chairman and finance director for a few years, non-execs, and got an introduction to Michel Roby, who unfortunately passed away last year, but he was one of the founding shareholders in Bakedin. Vividly remember it. Nick got me a meeting at the Waterside Inn with him just to show him the idea. And Michel was a pastry chef when he first started his career. And then he ran a 3 Michelin star restaurant for 40 years. It's the longest that a restaurant's ever held in the UK, 3 Michelin stars. And it's an incredible restaurant. It's unbelievable. Eaten there once. And I had this meeting with Michel on his deck by the River Thames outside the restaurant. I was so nervous. And, I knew I was going to get the investment close at this point, but I had this opportunity to get probably the best chef in the country, probably one of the best chefs in the world, to have some shares in Bakedin. And he loved it. And he was a lovely guy, so charismatic. And I definitely, but, some of our success, he's not the most commercial chef. He's not, lots of people still don't know who Michel Roux is, but in the culinary world, he's, the godfather. Him and his brother Albert, the godfathers of kind of modern restaurant cooking. And he saw the vision in this subscription, this different baking kit, completely unique, through the post every month. And it's a big goal because you've got to come up with brand new product every month. And we got him on board, and that was it. That was where we got the capital to build our first factory.
Did you close him at that meeting? Was it at that point, driving away from that meeting, you think that's...
I knew he was in at that meeting. You can tell. I mean, nothing was signed, but he said, "Yeah, I love this. I want in."
Do you remember how you felt when you drove away?
Yeah, I drove. We were at the farm shop and deli show at the NEC. It took us a couple of days off work. So Anna and Elena were manning the stand at the show, selling into to shops. And it's where we got Centre Parks as one of our first kind of big stockists from that show. And I jumped in the car and I drove down the M4 and had a meeting with him. And then I drove back to the show. Yeah, and I remember that drive back up the M4 to back up to the NEC. I was elated that I'd had this meeting. We're all a bit starstruck when we see a celebrity, and we're coming away thinking, I'm gonna quit my job and I'm gonna have one of the world's best chefs as a shareholder, putting his name and his signature on this box every single month, coming up with the recipes with us. Yeah, it was pretty surreal, I have to say. And at that point, I remember saying, I said to guys, I said, "We've done it. That's it. Bakedin's going to be a success." How little I knew was that we hadn't done it, and there was some ridiculous hard work ahead of us. But yeah, at that point, that was the first real elation, I would say, in Bakedin, was getting Michel on board and having this group of really supportive shareholders. Because lots of people say don't give investment away and don't sell anything, but we wanted to build a factory, and building a factory is capital intensive. One of our, and we particularly in the last 12 months have seen the benefits of this, but our strategy was to build in-house manufacturing and not to just be a brand and a couple of people sat in a shared office somewhere and have someone else making our product for us. We wanted to make it ourselves. And because we had all these different subscription boxes, and we started with 100 people, started with 100 customers, and there's no co-packer that would give us a decent price on 100 boxes, complicated boxes, 7 bags inside them, totally different product every month. So we had to build this in-house manufacturing. That was expensive, way more expensive than I thought, way more than 150 grand that I raised in the first round. So, we hired interns and junior people, and actually I hired a temp, Anna, who was about 20, and her and her husband, Marcin, come over from Poland, and they were living in England, and they joined as temps, just filling bags of flour. And Anna now is my factory manager, runs our entire factory site. And so I started with quite junior employees, or I was fortunate to get some less junior employees that could just see the vision and were happy to work for a junior salary. And hopefully they're seeing the benefit now with their share options are worth a lot of money. So, yeah.
How did you feel resigning from IBM? Because I think that for many people perhaps listening to this who might be in a corporate job now with a number of an idea, or maybe even more, but the perceived security, if you like, of a corporate job. And to your point, I think particularly in the current climate, not to suggest that people aren't fearful of things like redundancy, they're big issues, but nonetheless, the perceived security of a monthly salary and all that would entail. How did you feel? You've got 15 years in the bank, a lot of tenure. You've got recognition. You've got all of the good things that come with having done it.
I did get a pen.
You get a pen. How did you feel that morning driving in, thinking, right, today's the day I'm going to hand in my notice?
When I rattled the story off in a nutshell and I said I quit my job, it wasn't quite as straightforward as that. It was a little bit less risky than that. So, and I don't, I'll go into it now because we've got more time, but IBM was a great employer. IBM, I had a really good boss. He's called Rob. He was the vice president of the software lab. So he was a senior guy in software in the UK, and I was his, as it got towards the end, I was his right-hand man, his assistant effectively. And, it was a great opportunity. It was a much better opportunity than was wasted on somebody who'd sort of mentally checked out of the company. This is executive grooming kind of job and visibility and all this time. It wasn't a fun job, but it was, a really good opportunity. But it wasn't right for me. It's a job I'd been angling for the last 5 years, and I finally got it. And ironically, I got that job when I was mentally checked out, I think, and I probably didn't do anywhere near as good a job for Rob as I should have done and could have done. But when your heart's on something else, it's difficult to commit yourself to both. So I think I did a good job, but nowhere near as good a job as I could have. Anyway, Rob was totally supportive of me working on Bakedin in my spare time, and again, IBM is good at letting people take leave of absences. So I said, I really want to give Bakedin a shot. I feel like I need to do this. I was 35, didn't really have any, had a mortgage but no children or anything, no like real financial dependencies, and I had this, I had back surgery a couple of years before, and actually no, it wasn't. I'd had back problems a couple of years before. I just had the back surgery, and I used to play golf all the time, and it was my thing. I just loved playing golf, and I was a member of the course. It was a mile from work, so I could nip out at lunchtime and I could practice on the range, and I could play on a Friday afternoon, knock off early and go and play golf and play at the weekends. I was playing like 3 or 4 times a week, got my handicap right down, loved it. And that was probably why I was still content with a job that I didn't love, was because I could go and play golf in the evenings, and it was a nice life. And then my back went when I ended up quitting golf and got quite depressed, honestly. I had to eventually had surgery for it, and it's fine now. It's gone, but got addicted to codeine in the process of the painkillers because there's just so much pain, and got really quite miserable. There's something that was, a big part of my life just got taken away from me. And that was around this time of making the decision to do Bakedin. And Bakedin was one of the things that kept me going because I couldn't sit down because it hurt. Lying down hurt. Standing up was fine. So in the evenings, I'd be standing up weighing ingredients out, and that was fine. So to some extent, those first couple of really tough years of Bakedin helped me get through, but it was still really hard. So I said to Rob, I feel I need to give this a go. I really need to give this a go. I don't think he didn't know I was really, suffering from depression at that point, but he said, go for it. So I took a leave of absence. Long story, but
no, I think
I could take a year to go and do it, and I had a guaranteed job at the same level. Not necessarily the same job; someone else took that, but I could come back at the same level in a year's time if everything went to shit. I had that safety net, and that's quite unique. I think that's something that IBM just does really well. All sorts of bad press, but particularly the labs where I worked, they just looked after their people, and they weren't the best payers and they didn't have the best benefits, but they gave me that opportunity to try it with some level of safety net. And that was good. and I got my investment and built a team, and things were going well. But trying to get it off the ground, we probably didn't quite. I told the investors, we were going to be turning over £1 million after year one, and we weren't. We were turning out like 200k, and we ran out of money around about the time that my leave of absence was coming up, and there's the first time of £150,000 in the bank feels like a ridiculously high amount of money. And I thought, I've made it. Happy days. I've got Michelle Roux on board, got money in the bank. I've got some team, and just didn't really think through the implications of customers that weren't going to pay me for 2 months and having to buy raw materials in 3 months before, and the cash flow challenges of that gap. Just hadn't really. I knew about it. I knew the theory of it. I'd done a cash flow forecast. I'd done all the stuff I was supposed to do, but I'd never actually done it. And so as this year came up, we'd run out of money, and we had it just crept up on me. And we had 1 month's worth of money left. I could only pay people for 1 more month. And then I struggled again. And then I got a big bout of anxiety, and really that's when Patrick joined the business. That's when Patrick had left the army, and he was looking for something to do. And I had a sales manager job, and I'd been doing on my own for that year. And that's when Patrick came in and joined the business, but had this the actual decision to actually resign was harder than the decision to leave IBM and go and start Bakedin, because then I had to hand my notice, or had to go back to IBM, and I had no money. Bakedin, we'd run out of money.
What made you take the leap? What made you take the Bakedin leap?
So I think a couple of things. I think the fact that it's quite lonely going and being the sole director. That's the way I said I floundered. I don't think I floundered. We did a good job, but going and being the sole director, not having anyone that you can just talk to about these things, because it was all bottled up at this point. I couldn't go and talk to my operations manager or someone and say, we're going to run out of money next month, because then they're all going to panic. And you've got to go to work and try and put a brave face on, and you can't let other people. And it's good to talk about mental health, absolutely. But when you've got people who are depending, and then you don't want to send them all into panic that they may be out of a job the next month. You've got a month to figure it out, a month to sort it out. So anyway, Patrick started talking about joining. That gave me the motivation, thinking, okay, I could have someone else running the business. That'd be awesome. And then I was fortunate that our investors decided that some of them decided they wanted to invest again. So we raised another round of EIS investment, which then gave us enough to push on. And that was really important. Nearly running out of money is such an important thing, I think, because it's kind of forged a lot of the decisions we've made since. It's having that actual fear, that anxiety. And I've learned since then, I've learned how to, I think all of us have got anxiety in us. We all do to some extent. And some people it hits really hard. Some people it's suppressed. Some people it never sees the light of day. And I think knowing how to feel it coming and knowing how to manage it is really important. And that's something that I've been able to do for the last 4 years. Is a bit like when I still have the occasional back problems, but I know when it's about to go, and I know then not to stand up quickly or not to get out of the car quickly, because if I do, then it's going to jar, and then I'm going to be in pain for another 2 weeks. And I think you can kind of sense it coming. So yeah, so I got this, I had some more investment secured, and then I was like, right, okay, Patrick's joining. Yeah, I'll do it. I handed my notice, and then I actually resigned from IBM. So it was harder. It was harder doing that than it was actually making the decision to go with the safety net of a leave of absence to fall back on.
Do you attribute that period to the combination of your brother joining, the investment, the secondary raise? Mm-hmm. Do you attribute that moment as a sort of pivotal point at which you thought, you know what, and sure, blood, sweat and tears will have gone on since then, an awful lot of hard work. But was that the point at which you thought, you know what, that's pivotal to Bakedin? That's a foundation on which Bakedin has then continued to thrive.
Because we've grown quite sustainably. We're here 7 years later, and we're going to turn over well over £4 million this year. And there's 35 of us. We've got 35,000 square foot of factory. So it's worked. The strategy has worked. And I think it's pivotal because it's helped us to keep making decisions on marketing and things, but we've never bet the farm on anything. We've always been mindful. That feeling of nearly running out of money has always been present, and I've experienced it firsthand. They always say you learn by your mistakes. You don't really learn until you make some of those mistakes, and someone can tell you what to do until you actually experience it. So we've been pretty financially shrewd, but we've still managed to spend the money on the things we've needed to get to this point. So it's definitely forged some of our philosophies. If anything, it's possibly made us a little bit too cautious with some things. But we're fortunate now we've got some institutional investors behind us as well. And we've kind of really managed to, open up the amount we spend on customer acquisition. And we just acquired people very organically to our subscription boxes, whereas now, we've got the confidence to go on and actually spend money on pay-per-click and flyers. And we're going to do a TV campaign in the next couple of months. And so it's given us that kind of really solid foundation, I think, to build a business that we can grow into a 50, 100 million pound business but we're not just chucking everything at one big gamble and seeing it flop. So yeah, that was definitely a really important part in our story.
What's been really interesting, I think, and a consistent theme throughout our discussion here has been the references that you've made to other people and for want of a better term, sharing the burden, if you like, not only in terms of the working relationship with your brother, bouncing ideas around with Anna, finding other people, your relationship with Rob, your boss at IBM, but that people who've been pivotal to sharing the load and therefore you've been able to scale as a consequence. And what strikes me is that consistent through conversations I've had with entrepreneurs who've successfully scaled, I think most people I've met have understood that intellectually, in order that they might scale their business, they have to let other people get involved. Mm-hmm. But emotionally, letting that happen is another story entirely, because oftentimes they're driven by this sense of control and ownership and responsibility and accountability and driving it, and it's theirs. And there's a lot of identity wrapped up in it. You seem to have opened up Bakedin to have the potential to become a bigger pie very much earlier than maybe some might, which is interesting. I think it strikes me that opportunity to scale. How have you found that transition from kind of respectfully 3 people in a small unit to inviting other investors? Everybody's got not only a stake, but therefore arguably a say, an opinion, a voice. How have you found that transition? Even if you look back to that experience you alluded to from the get-go at IBM with the small acquired company in Maidenhead and the struggle of that entrepreneur to transition to corporate life, that's that's a step change, significantly different to what we're describing here. But have you found that transition to getting others involved from which you can then subsequently scale?
You can't do it all on your own. You have to get other people to do it. I'm still guilty of having these things that I end up thinking, I could do that, and then don't do it because I haven't got time. And actually that's part of what we're doing at the moment, is investing more heavily in growing the team and getting people in that we can actually get some of these projects move forward on quicker. Yeah, it's impossible to do. You can do this kind of business with a small team, but you have to contract out lots of things. And we took the approach of keeping everything in-house. So we've got an in-house creative team, design team, we've got a design studio, we've got finance, marketing, all the manufacturing, recipe development, warehousing, everything is in-house apart from HR. Everything is in-house other than things that can make me go to prison. So I give that to people externally. We had an external accountant. We've now got a head of finance that's come in, and you have to give up control and get good people to do that to be successful. It's not saying you can't be successful as a couple of people with a co-manufacturer, but it really has come into its own by letting us launch all these different products and test things out, make 500. If it doesn't work. We haven't invested lots in it. And it also really helped us during the pandemic, because we, from a business point of view, we've been really fortunate. Sales solves everything. Sales solves those problems. And back when we ran out of money, fortunately, we did have a few big customers come on board. I think we got Tesco. We got our first Tesco listing around the first time that I was making that decision to like completely quit and properly resign from IBM. And sales solves everything. So we've been fortunate to get lots and lots of new customers since the beginning of the pandemic. Home baking's been massively popular, and we deliver boxes that fit through letterboxes, so there's no contact. It's perfect from that point of view. There's obviously a massive drive towards direct to consumer, and we did the foundations for that. We had a few thousand subscribers already at that point, so it's not fluke, it's not luck. We're fortunate, but it's not luck, if that makes sense. And because we had our own factory, it was really difficult. We suddenly had to halve the number of people we have in our factory. Normally, when we get really busy, we get loads of people in and we pack boxes and we all pile in and do it. But we couldn't do that because everyone's got to be 2 meters apart. We've been a really good citizen since the beginning of this, and we've looked after everyone. Most of the office team are working from home. The factory guys have to come in because we're a food factory. and key workers, but we had to move all the counters apart. We had to reduce the number of people, and demand went up through the roof like 4 times overnight, and we had to halve our capacity. So that was challenging. We've got a twilight shift now. We've got a shift that comes in from 6 to midnight, and we work a 4-day week. So that was something I did at IBM, was I cut down to 4-day week. Started Bakedin and loved working a 4-day week. So, well, let's do that. Why not? This is our business. We can do what we want. No one can tell us what to do. So we're going to work Monday to Thursday, 30 hours, Monday to Thursday, and then everyone has a Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, and that's amazing. And it works really well for everyone. It gives us another day in the factory if we need to do overtime. And what it's meant is we can now do a Tuesday to Friday shift. So actually we can keep the factory going much longer. So we had a lot of creative things we had to do to keep it going. But because we had the factory ourselves, it meant we could keep manufacturing. The co-packers that we talked to in the industry, who'd normally work on 1 to 2 weeks lead time, were going out to 8-9 weeks, not even taking on new clients. So if we had been dependent on someone else, we probably would have furloughed everyone last March, and we'd had to furlough everyone because we wouldn't have been able to make any product. And we haven't furloughed anyone. We've actually hired 10 people since the beginning of the pandemic, and another kind of 20 agency staff in the factory. And moved into a new warehouse, which meant then we could turn our entire warehouse and office into the factory. So yeah, having that level of control, having things within our destiny is part of our brand. It's part of why we are kind of what we are, but it's expensive to start. And it's what most of that capital went on, was building factories and adding machineries. But it's what works well for us.
So looking back over the last 8 years now of Bakedin, is there anything that you would have done differently with the benefit of hindsight?
Yeah, I mean, with the benefit of hindsight, loads of stuff. I'd have raised more money to start with. I'd have learned that goes very quickly. I'd have started investing in pay-per-click marketing quicker from Facebook. Tried it myself, got some money, had a go, could make it work, stopped. Didn't realize that was just probably arrogant. I thought I was smart enough to just be able to figure it out myself. And it's actually quite a fine art in making Facebook ads work. It's not a case of just making an advert, pressing click and hoping you get customers for the costs you need to. Definitely should have started that a long time ago. We grew the Baking Club really organically, and there's some benefits to that. We grew it really slowly and sustainably, but started out with 120 people, I think, of which I'm pretty sure about 90 of them were my friends and family. A couple of them are still with us this day. So it was October 2015 we launched the first recipe, and I've still got friends who get that box every single month. And I mean, Andy and Kathy, Andy was one of the guys that started one of the previous businesses with me, and they still get it and bake it with their little ones every month. So there's benefits of growing it slow and steady, but I think if I'd known that I could get some more experienced marketeers involved and start growing that quicker, that we'd got to where we are quicker. But we know that now. I think having somebody else working with me. So when Patrick came in, Patrick took the retail sales. So he managed all our customers, all the stuff we sell in the shops. That was really important as well. So having somebody who could just focus on that, and I was trying to do the admin and the purchase orders and everything myself, that created a lot of extra capacity to grow some of the other sides of the business, because we took this strategy, and again, a tricky one. And if I had my time again, would I do it? I'm not sure. It's working now, so probably. But the strategy was to launch a range of products that sat on the shelf in the shops, and a completely unique product that we don't sell in the shops, subscription boxes online, and build these two parts of the business in parallel. It's more normal for someone to build a presence in retail and then go and launch a subscription or do something in direct to consumer, or vice versa. Gray's built a massive direct to consumer following and then moved into retail very successfully. And there's other brands like Hotel Chocolat build a subscription and build the two things and have the shops. And we tried to build these, and it's difficult because your resource gets spread very thinly across the ground. And we always looked at it as the rationale was because we can go to buyers in Tesco, Costco, our biggest customers, and say we can sell this product on the shelf, and people aren't then just going to come and buy it from our website because we don't sell on our website, but we're going to get them to come and join the Baking Club community in the subscription box. And equally in the subscription box, someone buys that, we can put flyers in that saying, go and buy this pretzel kit from Tesco's, which we launched a couple of months ago. It's been our most popular product we've launched in retail recently. And And we then don't lose the customers from the subscription box because they're completely unique products. And we're building this community, and it's always been about more than just the boxes we send through the letterbox. It's been about building a community of people. And again, that's something that decision has turned out to be a really good one. We went into the pandemic and people have discovered Bakedin, and they've discovered this community. So it's not just a way of getting convenient ingredients. It is a way of getting convenient ingredients to Letterboxd. That's not all it is. They also get access to this group of 9,000 of us now on Facebook in a closed group, which is, we moderate it, and it's just the most, friendly, supportive place. And it's a big part of the proposition now. Access to all the recipes, all the previous recipes. As a member, you get access to all those recipes as well. So there's kind of a bit of an ecosystem around it. And our tagline's happiness is homemade, super cheesy, but it's really true. And that's why people have flooded to baking during a pandemic, is because we're at home and doing something that's really making people happy. So growing that community, and that's ultimately one day what's hopefully going to make Bakedin a really valuable company, is that community. And, hopefully we're sending out 20,000 boxes a month, and hopefully in a couple of years' time we'll be sending out 60,000 boxes a month. And then we're a really valuable direct to consumer business, as well as having mainstream listings against the big players in the market. I mean, everyone knows Betty Crocker, but I don't think anyone loves making a Betty Crocker, but they do love Bakedin, and they love the brand and the people around it, and fostering that community, and us in the team all being in that community. It's been really motivating to us during the pandemic, seeing how much these boxes mean to people. And so when we've been grafting and we have our big day, they all go out on the same day of the month. That's quite challenging in itself. 20,000 boxes all left our warehouse yesterday, and my mum and dad and friends and family. And we normally get some agency staff in to help with the labeling day. It takes 10 people an entire day just to put the postage labels on the boxes for the subscription boxes now. And so because we don't want lots of people coming in that we didn't know because of the pandemic, we've tried to keep it to people that were either living with other people. My mum and dad lived with us during some of the pandemics. They were moving house. So we've got brothers-in-laws, parents, and all the office staff going down and helping label all these boxes, and it's freezing in the warehouse. It's like there's no heating in there. It's freezing. They're jokingly calling it the igloo at the moment, and it's fair. But when we're down there and our fingers are nearly falling off putting these labels on, thinking of, we know that there's people that are like pressing refresh to see when we're going to ship the boxes, and it's really nice. So that decision to build those two things together has been expensive and difficult, and maybe stunted our growth at the beginning. If we'd put all our eggs in the retail basket, maybe we'd be massive in retail. And if we'd have forgotten about retail and just maniacally focused all of our resource and energy on the Baking Club, maybe we'd have 30,000 on our subscription today. I don't know. But building the two together has now paid off. We're really seeing the rewards for that now.
So what does the future look like for Bakedin?
So we're just closing another round of investment with our existing investors. We're doing some Series A, and we've got another subscription box planned to go into our kind of subscription ecosystem. We've got some really interesting plans for a North American range, and that's something that may or may not come off. And it's obviously everyone tries to conquer America, and most people don't succeed. And people have told us it's a bad idea, and I think it's a good idea. People told us it was a bad idea. I remember being at a trade show at the beginning, and someone from one of our competitors who came up and talked to us for ages, we didn't know they were from one of our competitors, and a young lady from like the brand team or something, and she, "Oh, you're making everything yourself?" And she said, "Well, that never works." And I guess it spurred me on to make it work. So I think, we've got some really interesting North American plans. We've got some other products planned online, but really it's to really dramatically grow the size of our Baking Club community, because that's what people love. That's what we all love in the company. I think the products in retail, we've got loads of cool ones planned, but they're kind of, for us at the moment, supporting act. Retail was really important for us because it brought revenue and enabled us to grow the business. Direct to consumer businesses generally get grown at a big loss and very aggressively grown, and sometimes that's hugely successful, and sometimes they get wiped out very quickly. We've taken a kind of balanced approach. We've made some years we made a little bit of profit, some years we've made a little loss, and we've reinvested everything that we've made from all our retail growth into growing the subscription side. So traditionally our revenue split's been like 80% retail, 20% direct to consumer. And long term, we want to get that the other way. We still want to grow the retail side, but we want it to be 80% of our revenue coming from our direct to consumer activity, and investing in warehouse space and extra factory space is something that we're doing as part of this investment round to give us that capacity to go on and get loads more subscribers to our baking. We launched the bread club in June, so we've now got a bread baking club as well, and then another one planned for this summer. So it's to really grow that community enormously through extra investment in our pay-per-click and through TV campaigns as well. That's something really exciting that we just kicked off, and hopefully we'll see that on the screens in the next couple of months, but we're really pumped about that.
So where can people listening, where can they find that community? How can they, those that want to join, how can they go about doing so?
So our website's bakedin.co.uk, so bakedin.co.uk, and that's where you can join the baking club. That gives you access to the group community on Facebook, the baking club community, and all the perks and all the recipes and everything. So you can find out about all the products on there. We sell about 200 products on our website. So we started selling complementary products, baking tins, oven gloves, those kind of things we don't make. We sell those on the website as well. And we do these gift subscriptions. And at Christmas, this Christmas was insane. I think we sent out 2,500 gift subscriptions in a day. So people can buy a 3, 6 or a 12-month subscription. They get a certificate and they give it to someone with the first box, and then they can activate doesn't recur, it's a non-recurring subscription. And they're just really nice gifts. So we can sell all those on the website as well. In the shops, we're in all the big Tesco's. So we've got a rainbow cake that's amazing. It's probably our best selling product, has been our best selling product in retail. So it's all the different coloured layers, natural colourings, and we sell a few different formats of that. So that's super popular. And last year we had to pause it because we had to rationalise what we made during the pandemic, because we had to halve the number of people in the factory. A lot of our customers shut their doors, and then some of our customers went absolutely crazy with sales, like Tesco and Costco being fantastic for us. So we had this product that we'd launched, really innovative, called the Cake Factory, a sub-brand called the Cake Factory by Bakedin. And because we've got all these different coloured cake layers we can do, we've got different coloured icings and sprinkles, we came up with a tool on our website where you can customise this cake completely. So there's millions, I think there's hundreds of millions of combinations technically, but you can choose all the different coloured layers you want. You can choose the coloured icing, you can choose the type of sprinkles you want, you can add candles, add the tins to bake it in, and then we pick those in our warehouse individually, box them all up and send them out. And that's something we're going to put some real investment. It's been really popular. We did a Valentine's one this week, and we did it with red layers and white icing with little love heart sprinkles on top, and it sold out in hours. So the Cake Factory is going to be a big part of our investment in building that product out. You envision a tool when you buy a new car and you customize it and you change the wheels and the color and everything. And we've got this vision to do something similar to that with a cake that you can kind of create before your eyes, and then we send it out with personalization. We do mug cakes as well, so that was our bread and butter to start with, was our mug cakes, and we still sell loads of them, but the baking's overtaken. But you make them in a mug in the microwave with a little bit of butter and milk, and we've got a cake in a card. So one of those in a greetings card, so you send someone a cake in a card. So we've got all these kind of party things, and I know there haven't been lots of parties recently, but I don't know, we had just started a strategy to go to lots of events just before this happened. And obviously that strategy has been shelved at the moment. My personal opinion is that it's going to come back in spades. Everyone jumped on Zoom, didn't we? We all jumped on Zoom in the first lockdown, and everyone had Zoom quizzes and Zoom parties. And then we all realized that we don't like it that much. And it's fine from a business point of view, but I think we're all just desperate to get back out there and be humans again. I think the high street's going to look very different. We have toyed with high street concepts in the past. And it may be something that the high street is going to have to tempt businesses back in, and it's not going to be people just going and buying what they were going to buy. It's going to be experiential kind of businesses and shops, and Bakedin's quite well placed to do something in that space. So it could be a retail concept in the future, but I think just as humans, we're just desperate to get back out there and to live life to some extent how it was, and go to events and go and play golf. And I think once we can, I think the floodgate's going to open and we'll be back at those events in spades. So,
with all the experiences that you've had, what do you think you've learned about yourself as a consequence?
I say the self-motivation thing. I think until you realise until you step back and look at what you've accomplished and think, what points in this did I do my best stuff? And it was when I had good people around me. So I think I've certainly learned that from myself. I've learned that I'm massively happier when I'm doing something that I actually care about or really care about. Didn't realize before, obviously it dawned towards the end. And it is my business, so it's different when it's your own thing. But genuinely, for the last 5 years, I haven't had a Sunday evening, got to go to work feeling. Not once. Haven't had that once. And so I've learned that for me, the personal motivation of doing something that I'm really passionate about and interested in is something that's really important to me. Probably more important than the monetary side of it. And, I took a huge pay cut to go and start Bakedin, and it's now paid dividends. But actually just being happy doing something that you spend more of your life with people you work with than your family usually. Maybe different now, people start working from home a lot more, but in general, going to work and the people you work with and what you're doing at work is actually such a massive part of your life that to me it's hammered home how important that is to me. Being happy is doing something that I genuinely care about.
So if perhaps looking back, what advice might you give to 21-year-old Joe Munns?
Advice is a really difficult one because I've always got this approach that you can listen. Everyone's got different advice, and you just got to be careful what you listen to. Because if I give you this advice, is it right or is it wrong? I think it just depends. Everyone's different. And if I was, I could step back and say I would advise someone leaving university to just go and start their own business, but it's not necessarily the right advice, because actually that 15 years might have, forged me into what I am now and how I managed to start Bakedin. So going and starting that web development company or something straight out of university could have been hugely good, or it could have been a disaster. So I don't know, my advice is always to people is to listen to people's advice, but don't necessarily always take it, because it's not always right. So I think for me, it's do something you care about, do something that makes you happy, do something that you're interested in. And that doesn't have to be a hobby, right? For me, it was going to be golf or cooking. It doesn't have to be a hobby. It just has to be something that you can go and get excited about. The best salespeople are the people that are genuinely excited about what they're selling. And sales has been a huge part of what we've done at Bakedin. And I didn't really have any sales experience. Everyone always said you should go into sales. And I didn't fancy going into IT sales. There would have been a lot of money in it, but I just couldn't get my head around going and selling enterprise IT. Just couldn't get excited about it. So sales for me has turned into something I'm really good at and enjoy, but because it's something I really care about and I really enjoy. So find something that you genuinely care about and just go and get behind it and give everything, because you'll be happier in the long run.
What about away from work? I mean, it strikes me that your own business is a 24/7 commitment, even if it's just mentally. Having that downtime therefore becomes crucial, if difficult to achieve at times. But you mentioned, doing the big cook up at home on a Saturday. What do you do to unwind, to relax? Do you get any downtime? And if so, what does it look like?
It's a badge of honor these days, isn't it, for entrepreneurs to work 24/7, and the harder you work and it looks good. And I work really hard, and Fridays I usually work. We technically work a 4-day week, but Friday's a nice day for me to spend some time at home and do some of the quiet stuff that I wouldn't normally do, come and record a podcast, things that would be difficult to carve out in a busy working week. But I go and, when I can, not at the moment, but I go and play golf with my parents on a Friday. That's really nice for me to be able to go out and play golf with them on a Friday. I like to play golf at the weekends. I don't, have loads of hobbies anymore other than golf. I ironically don't do loads of baking. I guess you do that at work, and then I test bake. I test bake at least 1 or 2 of our products a month, so they get tested by all the staff and people take them home. We test them in loads of ovens. They get baked 20 times before they get released as a recipe, and either me or Patrick does the final sign-off. It used to be Michelle that did the final sign-off, but me or Patrick now test. So we test bake everything that comes out of that goes into the shop. So I bake a couple of things every month, and I really enjoy cooking. Cooking's a really important part of my life. Food is always going to be really important part of my life. But my work-life balance is good, I would say. I'm happy to, hold my hand up and say, and actually that's a culture that we try to give everyone at Bakedin. Work really hard when we need to, but we don't expect people to work on those Fridays. We want people to go and have a 3-day weekend. It's really important. I think, having a job that's motivating and challenging, but isn't everything. and it was everything when I really ran out of money. And one of the things was thinking about everything being taken away from me just like that was difficult to get my head around. Whereas we've actually been more successful, I think, since we've got a decent work-life balance across the company.
Fantastic. Well, I think it's a wonderful story, and I'm really looking forward to my Bakedin, enjoying that this weekend, my products to test. But I think really particularly looking forward to watching you guys continue to flourish, and I wish you every success. I really appreciate your time and sharing your story with us this morning. It's been great to have you on, and all the very best to you and your team for the future.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was good fun.
Cheers, Joe. All the best. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening to today's Extrology podcast. I really appreciate your audience and ears. If you've enjoyed it, then why not hop onto iTunes and give us a review? I'd really appreciate anything that you might have to say. Any feedback always gratefully received, and look forward to hosting you next time. See you soon. Just a reminder, today's podcast is brought to you by Progresso Talent Partners. Visit www.progressotalent.com today for more information.